Now, welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Or's Lightning Takes. And we are now on our third part of the Vanity Fair article covering it.
It's a lot of info in
There was
article.
a ton in there. There's still stuff on the other channel I'm going to cover, so... I don't even know what that... I think that's kind of a relief laugh. Like, yeah, you cover some of this. This is getting out of hand. No, there are two of them.
All right, today we're going to cover Andor, the Mandalorian, and Grammar Radio.
You should explain what Grammar Radio is.
I will when I get to it.
Oh, all right.
If you want to skip ahead, there's time
I
marks.
don't think people are going to skip to the Grammar Radio. I think we're trying to give them a reason to stick around for the Grammar Radio.
Well, it's going to be another big project, so...
Yes. All right, well, let's get right to the news.
All right. So, the story of Andor will explore Cassian Andor's backstory. Wow.
Shocking.
So it's going to reveal what drew him to the rebellion and how he evolved from a self-serving nihilist into a selfless martyr. Diego Luna was especially glad that the show's proposal included details that resonated with him personally. Luna describes Andor as a refugee story, with desperate people fleeing the Empire at the full force of its power. It's a journey of a migrant, he says. That feeling of having to move is behind this story very profoundly and very strongly. That shapes you as a person. It defines you in many ways and what you're willing to do. This guy gave his life for the galaxy, right? I mean, he consciously, soberly, without vanity or recognition, sacrificed himself. Who does that? He asks. That's what this first season is about. It's about him being really revolution-averse and cynical and lost and kind of a mess. So the story begins with the destruction of Andor's birth world, then follows him into adulthood when he realizes he can't run forever. His adopted home will become the base of our whole first season, and we watch that place become radicalized. Then we see another planet that's completely taken apart in a colonial kind of way. The Empire is expanding rapidly, they're wiping out anyone who's in their way. By journey's end, Andor's path will be to block theirs. The show also focuses on the enigmatic rebel leader Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly, who portrayed her as a young senator in Revenge of the Sith, then reprised the role in Rogue One. In Andor, her story will run parallel to the title character, whom we know will eventually become one of her key agents.
That is a lot.
That's a lot on Andor.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of these shows are like, we're not going to tell you anything. In this show, it's like, here, let me explain the whole first season plot and where it's going and what exactly we want to do with the series.
I'm really liking that it sounds like we're going to see, like, here is the Force. Here is, not the Force, but here's
the might of the Empire?
Yeah, the might of the Empire. We're going to see more of on the ground. This is how normal people who are in the Empire's way for reasons or another because they need the planet's resources or your planet's radicalized. This is what we're going to do to you.
I think this show will really, I don't want to say for the first time, but I mean, you don't really, in a lot of the shows and movies, you don't really see the horror of the everyday person who has to deal with the Empire. It's not, I mean, I think Rogue One kind of, dips its toes into this idea that it shows just how bad it is under the Empire.
Absolutely.
I mean, the original trilogy, you don't see the common person's perspective, why the Empire is so, not saying you need to or that it doesn't work because you don't see that, but I am kind of interested to see what they do with this, how they show the Empire, why it is such a terrible, terrible thing for the galaxy.
Right. And Catalyst gave you a good little
stuff
on that. And even the book, which wasn't so great, Rebel Rising, they show you kind of what it was like living in the prisons that the Empire created, what it was like living amongst the radicals, living amongst Saw Gerrera, which, I mean, he's supposed to be in this season, and they're talking about the Empire wiping, coming to deal with a radicalized planet that he, Andor ends up on. So I wonder if that's where we'll see Saw.
Seesaw?
Yeah.
You went there, didn't you?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think, Andor's kind of I don't want to use the word enigma, but it's such a strange show because, as Diego Luna even pointed out, like, we know how his story ends. We see the actual turn to true, full-fledged hero in the movie, so it's kind of, I'm not sure entirely what the story of Andor is going to be. What, we're going to see him go from not care to kind of radicalized to, in the movie, we'll see him kind of...
Well, they said self-serving nihilist at the beginning. He has no interest in helping the Republic.
I mean, that's kind of Jin's story, right? From Rogue One?
Yeah, a little bit. She got invested, though, because of personal, finding my dad. That's what started to invest her. So we'll get to see what's investing him.
I guess. I'm just...
It's cool to see the different ways that people end up in the rebellion.
Well, I agree. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't personally have any interest in Andor. I think Andor could be really, really good and interesting. I think the general person doesn't really care too much about Andor. You know, the average, maybe the casual fan who's like, "What? Who is this about now?"
And it is a big loss that K2SO won't be in the first season.
That's a huge...
Because Alan Tudyk is gold.
Yeah, he was arguably the best character in that movie for a lot of people. So now we're going to have a whole series of just Cassian. And like I said, I hope it's great. I know Diego Luna is a huge fan, so that's cool that he's getting to do this. And I cross my fingers and hope that this is something... something different with Star Wars too. I mean, it's kind of ironic. We're going to go from like Kenobi, which is going to be, one of the most famous characters in the franchise. It's going to be this story against him versus Vader. And we're going to have, the Force and lightsabers, and we're going to have all these things. And then the next series after that is going like gritty Cassian that nobody knows. And, probably very minimal, Force and, not very kind of, I don't want to say not epic, but doesn't really, deal with the kind of the core philosophies of Star Wars with the Jedi versus the Sith. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that show is, how people respond to it, especially in the wake of Kenobi, assuming Kenobi is good.
All right, well, let's move on to our next segment here today. This is about what they had to say about The Mandalorian. So when they started out developing The Mandalorian, Favreau met at Kennedy's office in Santa Monica. He started work without even a contract being written up.
That's the kind of thing I like to hear, but go ahead.
So he says, by the time he was officially hired, he'd already written the first 4 episodes. The problem Kennedy faced was that Dave Filoni had also devised a series focusing on the Mandalorians. Filoni wanted to explore some of the ideas they'd never fully realized. He remembered when he did Clone Wars with George that the Mandalorians, George told him, the Mandalorians are pacifists in this time period. And he was like, oh... Well, that's kind of different than what anyone else thinks they were.
Oh, it's probably the best.
Yeah.
I think that's the response every Star Wars fan had to the Clone Wars. Mandalorian's a pacifist now. Oh.
And George was like, well, you've got to remember that people are never just one thing. Cultures evolve and they change over time.
True, fair enough.
They showed that within the show. They had Death Watch, the Protectors of Concord Dawn.
Yeah.
You move into Rebels and you see how, they evolve and change a lot. So...
And culture can change quickly. I think the modern world, if I've learned anything in my life, the world is completely different from when I was a kid. So, and it feels like it's even more rapidly changing every day. So I can certainly see how a culture can do a 180 pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right. After meeting in Los Angeles, Favreau and Filoni exchanged ideas for a Mandalorian show that they could combine their ideas on. Apparently, they got along instantly. Filoni's knowledge of the Mandalorian history blended with Favreau's lone gunslinger concept. Most importantly, the new partners challenged each other. Favreau's idea for the child was the biggest sticking point. It gave us some pause, Kennedy says. He and Dave debated quite ferociously. Filoni's...
Two Star Wars nerds just having at it. I wish we could have seen that.
Over the child.
Yes.
Filoni says, honestly, it was something I never would have done because Yoda is Yoda. Yoda's homeworld and backstory were never fully revealed, and Filoni wanted to protect the mystery that Lucas built around the original Jedi Master.
I kind of find it hard to believe they didn't really know each other. They would have... Favreau worked on... He's pre-Vizsla in the Clone Wars, so I'm sure those two already knew each other.
But it's different to be working together in this respect. To have creative control over projects.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
It's more than just him being like, I'm kind of in charge of you, and you say the lines that I want.
Was that supposed to be Filoni? Because it was nothing like Filoni. Yeah, I'm going to need you to say these
Filoni
lines.
was the Emperor.
But no, I think that you can see when those two get together. Like, I remember Celebration a few years ago when they were talking about the upcoming Mandalorian. You could tell they were giddy. They were giddy. Two Star Wars nerds. They'd become pretty close friends already. So it doesn't surprise me that there was pretty much probably an instant kind of connection between those two, and that other than the child, they are on the same page with a lot of things.
The character later revealed to be named Din Djarin is such a hardline devotee to Mandalorian rules that he scrupulously keeps his helmet on in the presence of others. That means Pascal can sometimes play the role as a voice actor while the stand-in wears the armor, which frees him to accept other projects. What he has to say about it is he's like, maybe I'm a little bit of a commitment phobe because the coolness of it really excites me and the lifespan of it really intimidates me. Season 3 of The Mandalorian drops late this year or early next year.
I would imagine the when you get into Star Wars, you probably do feel this sense of, oh boy, what am I committing to? Because I know I could always be asked back, unless your character dies. But even then, you could come back.
His longevity could even be longer. He doesn't have to be the one in the suit.
No.
He can just read voice lines.
I mean, I'm sure he does that mostly, except for when the helmet comes off. I'm sure it's a lot of stunt double.
It is cool because it does let him keep pursuing his other aspirations as an actor.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't always need to even be on set, of course, to perform his role.
Yeah. It's kind of like being, animation. You just kind of show up a couple times, you record your lines, and...
Well, really, he could just find a recording studio anywhere.
In theory, yeah.
I mean, technology being as it was, he could be, FaceTiming the director. They could be getting the lines directly uploaded as he does them, and they could give him notes and go, they can go back and forth and do it remotely.
I'm sure they do a lot of times with these voice act, especially if it's just a couple lines. Like, why fly them across maybe the world or the country to have a couple lines recorded when,
Well, especially, the technology advanced also because of COVID.
Well, yeah,
people couldn't get together in person, so these people could do all their jobs from home. The artists and animators could do their job from home. The directors, with FaceTime and all that new stuff, they could do all that from home. They could record from anywhere as long as they could get in touch with the studio or have one in their own home.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of these people probably can afford
professional voice actors probably have their own studios.
Well, yeah, a lot of them already just go out of their way to get that to practice and do their own thing at home. So,
all right, let's move on to the mysterious Grammar Radio. So this is a new series that is on the horizon. It does not even have a title, just of course this code name of Grammar Rodeo.
Grammar Rodeo or Grammar Radio?
Rodeo.
Okay.
I know, I called it radio again.
You did.
It's Rodeo, which of course is a reference to the episode of The Simpsons in which Bart and his schoolmates steal a car and run away for a week, using a phony educational event as an alibi. Hence the name Grammar Rodeo. The show takes place during the post-Return of the Jedi reconstitution that follows the fall of the Empire. The same as Mandalorian, but the plot is a secret. It's created and executive produced by director John Watts and writer Chris Ford, who made Spider-Man Homecoming for Marvel. A casting notice has called for 4 children around 11 to 12 years old. Inside Lucasfilm, the show is being described as a galactic version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films from the 80s.
So, Stranger Things meets Star Wars minus the stranger part.
Meets Simpsons.
So it's basically gonna be the Goonies, I guess.
Space Goonies.
Space Goonies is kind of what I'm getting from this.
I hope one of the kids is at least an alien.
Oh, well, they better be.
They're all human.
I hope they're all aliens. That'll make it better.
It would make it better.
I mean, I don't know what to think about this. And am I going to watch it? Yeah. Are we going to review it? Yeah. But
well,
I mean,
once we get more information on it, it'll be more exciting, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be. Well, I don't know. I mean, it could be something more aimed at nostalgia.
Well, it is also made by the people who did Spider-Man Homecoming.
Well, sure.
Which was a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, I until we get more information, I don't know that I'm either excited or dreadful or what I am about this one. Well, I guess that's all we got for you this time. I think we have a little more Vanity Fair to go.
We've got one more Vanity Fair video.
Yeah.
This one mostly around the state of Star Wars.
Oh, and yeah, I will have another one on my channel as well. So take to the comments below. Tell us what you think about these topics today and what you think about the Vanity Fair article in general, if you've read it, I guess. And let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.